Hey, yo, what's going on? It's your man Louie T back with another installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Hope this episode is finding you in great spirits. We've got a ton to discuss, some football related, some non football related, number of topics that I just want to get off my chest. I don't think we've talked since the Final Four had been set. So we'll talk about that a little bit. My Memphis Grizzlies are in a total tailspin. They fired their coach. John Morant might get suspended again. My Atlanta Braves are 0-6 to start the season off. All I have is the Duke Blue Devils right now. I'm clutching them like a woman clutches their pearls right now. Like I need them to win the Natty. That's all I got right now. All right, I'm struggling. Anyway, I've been watching some TV programming. We'll get to all that. Wait a minute. Let's get into this thing. You're locked into the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 493rd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. Me and the wife had a little quick weekend getaway. Was much needed. And while we were there, caught a little college basketball, watched a couple series, and it was a nice refresher. We haven't talked about TV programming in a while. Reacher season 3, I think I told you guys that it was out. We knocked that out. Just finished it over the weekend. Typical Jack Reacher finish to the season. Hopefully there's a season 4. We'll see what happens. I mean, we haven't finished Invincible yet. I don't even remember what episode we were on. So, got to finish that. A number of you have given me like different recommendations. Keep sending them. Like you never know what's going to hit, what's going to stick. So, keep sending those in. We talked college basketball the last time we were on the podcast, and I think I got every game right except for Texas Tech and Arkansas. And Arkansas was up 19 with about 9 minutes to go, 8, maybe 6 minutes to go in that game, and they blew it. Let Texas Tech come back, send it to overtime, and ultimately win the game. But I got all the other ones correct. It's an all chalk, all one seed Final Four. It's the only second time that that's happened in the tournament's history since it moved to 64 teams. I think the last time it was 2008. I love our, chance to win. I'm going to be honest. I thought Alabama was going to give us a tougher go of it. I watched them make 25 3-pointers. you know, on Thursday night, right before Duke played. I watched them do that, and I was like, oh, shit, this is what I was concerned about, right? But as my buddy said going into the game, good. I'm glad they made 25 threes. They used them all up. They shouldn't have any left for us. He was right. So on we move. All 1 seeds, Duke Blue Devils, Houston Cougars, Florida Gators, and the Auburn Tigers. We'll see what happens on Saturday. I don't quite remember who advanced on the women's side, but I do remember telling you that USC would win 1 game without Juju, which they did, and I told you they would lose to UConn afterwards. They just didn't have enough, and they did. I expected South Carolina to do what they did. Now, I did not expect them to struggle in the manner that they struggled, barely getting by Maryland and barely getting by who did they play after that? Forget who it was that they played after that, but they barely got by them as well. But they made it. Those are the 2 best teams in college basketball, women's college basketball. And hopefully they did right and put them on the opposite sides of the bracket so we could get a national championship game with those 2 facing off. Because ultimately it's going to be UConn and South Carolina, I believe. Now, the regular season matchup wasn't competitive, but I don't think you're going to see that happen again if those 2 teams should meet in the final. But I think we watched a little bit of women's college basketball over the weekend as well. We watched LSU lose to UCLA. So that was the last women's game that we watched. But let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies real quick. This is more of me venting than you actually caring. But I did have some people ask me about it when it first happened. So we got to go back a little ways first. I stopped watching the Grizzlies over a month ago. I told my buddy, I saw where this season was going. I just didn't have the stomach to ride it out because it was so maddening. I would watch these games and the same problems would be persisting every single game. We couldn't beat any good teams. Anybody that had a winning record, we would lose to. We couldn't rebound. We don't play any defense. We can't guard the 3-point line because we can't keep teams out of the paint. And it just became this really frustrating Groundhog's Day type of situation where every game just felt the same. Going to get crushed on the boards, going to give up a bunch of open looks from deep. We're going to have our games where we can't shoot it, and we're going to lose. So I just put them away. I was like, I'm done. They're going to get to the playoffs. They're going to lose in the first round. It's whatever. That was over a month ago. I haven't watched the Grizzlies since. But, I follow them. So I'm checking the box scores and seeing, what's going on, but I'm not watching. That's my silent protest. I'm not watching because I know where this leads. It hadn't gotten any better. As a matter of fact, it got progressively worse. I did not expect it to get this bad. Injuries and things of that nature, but them firing Taylor Jenkins was very, very surprising. When they replaced most of his staff this past offseason, the writing was on the wall that if he didn't win, he could be gone. But after starting the season off 35-16 and almost feeling like a lock for 50 wins this season and a top 3 seed in the West, I wasn't sure if he was going anywhere. And the offense was better. We were scoring. It was free flowing. It was everything that they wanted it to be, except your best player wasn't thriving in this new offense. And it was apparent. And I told my buddy about 2 months ago, Ja made some comments that I found really interesting. After a game, he told the media that I don't really know how I fit in the offense. He essentially said, I'm trying to figure out when to take shots, when to be assertive, when to be aggressive. He didn't know where he fit in the offense because there weren't any pick and rolls, weren't a lot of screens being set, no dribble handoffs. It was just spacing, isolation, penetrate, kick type of offense, back cuts, things of that nature. And the offense could be initiated with anybody that you trusted handling the ball. So that meant Ja wasn't always initiating offense. Sometimes he'd be in the corner. And it's not like he's a shooter. So his job was to cut to the basket and, have opportunities going towards the rim. But it didn't suit him. It didn't fit him. And he didn't have the ball in his hands. And he was struggling with it. So eventually, the defense, which was top 7 at one point in the NBA this season, we were top 7. We were one of like 3 teams that was top 7 in both offensive and defensive efficiency ratings this season at one point. We have dropped to like 21st in the league defensively since the All-Star break. But if you go back probably a month prior to the All-Star break, and we were struggling on defense then, but it's gotten progressively worse. The rebounding disparity has gotten worse. And we can't hold a team, it feels like, under 115 points. But I still didn't see Taylor Jenkins getting fired with 10 games left in the season. Like, I mean, who does that? Apparently we do. Now Ja might get suspended again for the gun gesture on the sidelines. I don't know what the hell I don't know what goes through his mind. Like, he's been doing so much stuff to rehabilitate his image and to kind of just stay out of the way. And while this may be something harmless, it's just, the rules to the game, right? Like, what are you doing? Why? You're at the most critical juncture of your season. Your team is struggling. They need you, and you might get suspended. Where's the psychological sense in that? It's going to be interesting to see what the Grizzlies do this offseason, because I'm already looking towards the offseason with the Grizzlies, because they're in the playoffs in terms of the play-in. Like, they can't be eliminated, but at one point we were fighting for the number 2 seed. Right now, we're fighting to stay out of the play-in tournament. We're the 6th seed in the West. Do you know how hard you have to work, how bad you have to be to go from the 2nd seed? Just 3 weeks ago, we were the 2nd seed in the NBA Western Conference. Do you know how bad you have to be to fall from the 2 seed all the way to the 6th seed? And now you're fighting for your life not to be in the play-in tournament, which I hope we are in the play-in tournament so we can get eliminated. Because honestly, I don't want to have to sit through, because I'm gonna watch if they make the playoffs. Like, I can not watch regular season basketball. If they make the playoffs, I'm obligated to now watch. I don't want to have to watch Memphis Grizzlies playoff basketball. I'm okay because we're not going anywhere. We may even get swept. I don't need to be a part of that. So instead of us going in as the 5th seed, or, even worse, like the best case scenario is that Memphis finishes the 6th and the Rockets finish 3rd. We have a shot against the Rockets. Probably won't beat them, but they don't know any better yet. So we'd have a shot. Anybody else in the West, and we're getting crushed, either swept or 4-1. If it's the Lakers, if it's the Nuggets, it doesn't matter. Like we don't. If it's the Warrior, we don't stand a chance, right? If you fall into the play-in tournament, you're either going to play the 2 seed or the 1 seed. You end up with the 8 seed and you play OKC, we're getting swept. They've mopped the floor with us 3 or 4 times this season. It hasn't been close. This was before Brandon Clark went down for the rest of the season. So we just played OKC, 5 days ago? Fought for 3 quarters and then got our brains bashed in the 4th. So, yeah, like we got nothing for them. We can't beat Denver. The Rockets are the only team that I think will have a shot against. You got to end up with the 6th seed, though, to do that. I don't think they're going to end up with the 2 seed. They could, theoretically speaking, end up with the 2 seed. But wherever they are, that's where we need to be if we want to play in a competitive series. But the way that this season is gone, it's amazing. I don't know if I've seen a collapse quite this drastic before. But then my Braves are 0-6. What a hell of a way to start off the season, out on a West Coast trip. 4 against the Padres, and then 3 against the World Series defending champion Dodgers. Like, yikes! What did we do to you? Yeah. We might be going home 0-7. We were winning the last time I checked, but what did that mean the last 4 times I checked when we were winning late, and then bullpen gave up runs and we lost games? So I'm going to assume that that's going to happen again in this game. We're going to be 0-7, and now you got to try to start work your way out of this hole that you've dug for yourself to start the season off. There's 162 of these, and at this pace, we would end up 162. Yikes. Anyway, I digress. Enough of me ranting and raving about things you probably care nothing about. Let's get to some things that you do care about. And that is the National Football League. So, with that said, let's talk about the NFL and some recent changes to some of the rules as they just wrapped up their league meetings. And let's talk about what they voted on and what ultimately was approved and passed, what got tabled, and what changes you should be looking forward to in the upcoming season. So, without any further ado, let's get to the gem dropping session, shall we? Yeah, I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, let's talk NFL rule changes. So, we talked about some of the proposals maybe a week or 2 ago, and we were talking about how intriguing some of these rule changes were and how I was really impressed with some of the rule changes or proposals rather that some of the teams had come up with. The Lions, for instance, had come up with, you know, reseeding the playoffs after the 1 seed, 2 through 7 would just be reseeded based off of their records, not necessarily winning the division. That was tabled, and they'll revisit that at another date and time. So that one did not pass through. Obviously, the tush push is what grabbed all of the headlines as the Packers proposed that the tush push be banned. And I told you when, first of all, I'm not a proponent of the tush push. Again, it's a more of a rugby scrum. It's a rugby play. It's not, to me, a natural football play, but whatever. Like I told you, you got to come with a legitimate reason to ban it other than the Eagles and Bills are really good at it. That's not a good enough reason. Like you can't come at me with some bogus, oh, well, it's a health issue. Show me one time a guy got injured during the tush push. I'll wait. So it's not a health thing, right? So spare me all your sorry details on that because that's not true. Is it an eyesore? Yeah, it is. But is that enough to get it banned? I don't think so. And apparently the other owners didn't believe so either. I think they ended up having 16 owners vote against banning it and 16 for banning it. So you need 24 to get anything passed through. So they've tabled it and they'll revisit it. I think they do this again in May, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what happens with that. Those were some of the high profile ones that we talked about that didn't get passed through, but there were quite a few that we talked about that did actually get voted on and pass through. Before we get to some of those and talk about the impact of those, let's talk about some of the other things that may not have garnered a ton of headlines, but should also be noted, right? So the NFL, their method for measuring first downs will switch from the chain gang. That's all we've ever known, right? This is not an old man get off my lawn plea to bring back the chain gang, where you get the old white guy who can't keep up, who can't get out of the way when players come over there that get knocked down on the ground and fall and hit his head, and now you got to stop the game, or you got to, get the help him to his feet, clear the cobwebs. Those guys are still going to be around, but only as a secondary option and a fallback plan should technology fail the NFL in a game. As we know, technology is not foolproof. So they're going to have a camera-based technology in 2025 to more precisely spot the ball, determine what is and what isn't a first down. I'm interested to see how this goes. And as a fan of a team who was screwed by an improper spot last season, I think it is something that the league did need to take a look at. I've always been a proponent of like getting things right, but I'm also okay with human error because that was a part of the game. Human error is always going to be a part of the game unless you're going to get the officials out and have games officiated by robots. And even then, again, things are subjective. Pass interference is subjective. Holding is subjective. There's a gray area. It's not offsides. It's not a legal man downfield where you can precisely say this guy is more than a yard down the field before the ball was caught by said receiver, right? Those are black and white. So there's always going to be human error. So I'm okay with it. It sucks, but that's just the nature of the beast. But if you can get something right, you try and get it right. And so they're switching to camera-based technology in 2025. I think largely in part to because of the Josh Allen Buffalo Bills quarterback sneak that they just didn't have the right camera angle to show that they got the first down because everybody believes they got the first down. But Chris Jones was in the way of the one angle that would have shown that Josh Allen and the football passed the line to gain and would have given the Bills the first down and ultimately the win, which would have sent them to the Super Bowl. Instead, the ball was spotted where it initially was, which was short of the line to gain. Chiefs get the football and ultimately get the win. So I think this is kind of something to combat that, so to speak. Anyhow, let's talk about the rules and what has transpired. So, rule change proposal, Rule 6, Section 1. We've talked about the dynamic kickoff. That was a one-year experiment last year. Well, they've voted to make the dynamic kickoff a permanent fixture in NFL games moving forward. So the trial basis for the dynamic kickoff has been removed. It is now a permanent fixture in NFL games. They have made some adjustments and modifications to it, however. The receiving team's alignment in the setup zone is a little bit different. We'll get into the specifics of that down the road. But here's the big one that's going to alter what the NFL hopes to entice teams, damn near force them to kick it into the landing zone. The ball, if it does not land in the landing zone, but rather the end zone first for a touchback, the ball will be spotted at the 35-yard line, which is just insane. That is pure insanity. Like, I hate this with a passion. I understand what they're trying to do, but the ball being placed at the 35-yard line, like, is insane. You're literally 20 yards away from most kickers' field goal range at that point. And I'm being a little bit facetious when I say that. I mean, not many kickers are banging it home from 62, 63, but you got some kickers that can in this league. But I mean, just think about that. You're essentially 2 first downs away from being just out of, just on the outskirts of field goal range. And depending on what those 2 first downs look like, if one's a gain of 14 and the other is a gain of 12, you're probably in field goal range. That's asinine. You want the kickoff back in the game that badly that you're willing to look, I get it. It's an offensive league and they like when points are being scored, but come on, man. If you like instead of having this bullshit, just move the ball back where you're kicking it from. That's always been my mindset. Is where the league went wrong was when they kept moving the ball up where it's being kicked off. These kickers have stronger legs, stronger than ever before. You don't want the ball going in the end zone? Put the ball at the 20-yard line and let the kicker kick it from there. He's not kicking it 80 yards into the end zone. Right? Like, stop moving the touchback. That's stupid. So they're hoping that the penalty, which is because this is essentially what this is. I mean, there's not that big of a difference between kicking the ball out of bounds and having it be an illegal kickoff, which starts the opposition at the 40-yard line. There's not much difference between that and just kicking a standard touchback now and giving it to them at the 45 or 35. It's not much of a difference. What is this, Arena League football? What are we doing right now? You want more kickoffs returned. All you had to do was make one modification. Move where the ball is actually kicked. Instead of it being kicked from the 35-yard line, I believe is where the ball is now, move it back to the 25. Move it back to the 20. You can leave the kickoff units exactly where they are. Keep the landing zone exactly where it is. Keep everything. Just move the damn ball back. This is ridiculous. Touch back to the 35-yard line. This is dumb. And we'll see if they get the intended results or if some unintended consequences come of this. I hope someone finds some sort of loophole in this, or if something goes awry and they say, okay, no, we got to change it. This is dumb. But like most things that happen in the NFL, we'll readjust because that's what we do as fans. We bitch and moan about it in the offseason when they first change it. And then you get used to it, and then it just becomes a part of the game, and it is what it is. That's just dumb. Like, I used to think the 30 was a bit, rich. Like, man, the 30, that's crazy. But okay. The 35 though, like, you're talking about a third of the field. That's ridiculous. But they want more kickoffs. They want more returns. And they saw it move up just a bit last year, and they figure the 30 wasn't a great enough penalty for kicking it in the end zone. The 35 should change people's minds. And what if it doesn't? What if teams just say, okay, you get it at 35? Whatever. Then what? Don't penalize teams for kicking it in the end zone. Just move it back. Just move the kickoff point back. And that will naturally have the ball land in the field of play. They're just going about this all the wrong way. But I digress. So the Eagles were one of about 5 teams we talked about to have proposals that I thought were very interesting. I love the Eagles proposal, not necessarily because of both teams possessing the football. I really was fascinated by the 15-minute overtime period being installed in the regular season. I think 10-minute overtime periods are a joke. I think they are a joke. So in the postseason, it's 15 minutes overtime is. What's the difference between regular season and postseason overtime? You tell me. Only thing that's different is there must be a winner in the postseason. Don't tell me that you care about player safety, which is why you don't need the other 5 minutes. Stop it, okay? How many games go to overtime during the regular season? Stop it, okay? The whole reason I loved this proposal was because I was hoping that you would get 15-minute overtimes reinstalled in the regular season. So they passed this rule that the Eagles proposed, and they take the one part of the proposal that I actually liked out and then passed it through. I said, you son of a bitch. So here's the new overtime rule in the regular season. To align the postseason and regular season rules by granting both teams an opportunity to possess the ball regardless of the outcome of the first possession, subject to a 10-minute overtime period in the regular season. So essentially, it was if a team possessed the football first and drove down the field and scored a touchdown, they won in overtime. That was the only way the game could end with a score on the opening possession of overtime, is if it was a touchdown or a pick six. And I'm assuming that a turnover that goes for a touchdown still will end the game. I'm assuming, right? If you try to score and I instead score based off of a turnover, what do I need to possess the football for again? Or why do you get another crack at it? You shouldn't, right? So I'm assuming that still will uphold. But if the team that wins the toss elects to receive, drives the length of the field, scores the touchdown, the other team then gets to possess the football. But you haven't fixed anything. Like, this is still dumb to me, right? Why is this dumb? Because in the regular season, I've talked about this already. My Commanders played the Atlanta Falcons in an overtime game in week 17 of the season. And they won the toss, elected to receive, and then proceeded to drive the length of the field in about 7 minutes and 30 seconds of overtime clock being used. And they scored a touchdown with like 2-something left. In this scenario that the Eagles have proposed and the league has approved, the Falcons would then get the football back with a chance to tie the game in overtime, but only having 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do it. Good luck, right? So you're still not giving them the same opportunity that the other team just had. So what's the point? I don't understand. What difference does it make if both teams get to possess the ball if I'm still only getting it with a minute left? I've seen in overtime where a team took 9 minutes of the clock in overtime. Now, fortunate for that game, it would have been a bigger deal. That team scored a touchdown. So it didn't really matter that the other team only would have had a minute to go down the field. But that's the point, is if it's a 10-minute overtime and I take up 8 minutes and 47 seconds and score a touchdown, it's one thing if it's a field goal. But if I score a touchdown and all you have is a minute and 13 seconds left to score a touchdown, what difference does it make if I get the football? It's still dumb. So I look, they want fairness. I hate this rule for the purpose of making it fair. Oh, I want a turn too. They scored a touchdown. I should get a chance too. Get a stop. Man up. Stop being a bitch. Oh, they scored a touchdown. I should get a chance. Isn't it my turn now? No. You want a turn? Get a stop. Force them to kick a field goal. Force them to punt the ball. Don't let them score a touchdown. You can't do that. You don't deserve to have a shot. Or win the toss. Do something, right? No, I should get a turn too. This is sissification of football to me. Not from a physical standpoint, but oh, I need a turn as well. I should get a turn too. No, you shouldn't get a turn. Get a stop. And then to not make it 15 minutes is just I don't really know what the hell they thought they were accomplishing doing this shit. But whatever. That's the new overtime rule, right? Both teams will get the football no matter what happens. But it's still only 10 minutes. So again, I've given you extreme cases, but these extreme cases have happened in the NFL overtime, right? Where a team is taking 7, 8. I've seen 9 minutes where a team took in overtime to score. So again, it is what it is. Both teams will possess the football no matter what. Turnover, not turnover, excuse me, field goal, touchdown, punt, whatever. Both teams will touch it. That's the gist of it. And here are some other things to note, and this is a big one. So we saw the initial installation of replay assist last season, where New York could buzz in and say, hey, that's you guys threw a flag for a legal man downfield. He wasn't illegally downfield. Go ahead and pick that up. Or call on the field is a touchdown. Instead of them having to run over to the monitor and look at it and do all that, nah, he didn't catch that shit. Okay, cool. Nah, it's not a catch. Oh, we spotted the ball wrong. We got to go to the monitor. No, you don't got to go to the monitor. Hey, he went out of bounds at the 35-yard line. That's a first down. Move the sticks. Let's play the game, right? So we saw replay assist jump in and help out last year. In certain instances, they could only help in certain instances, right? Now we're getting an expansion of replay assist. So let's talk about it. So this was approved. Rule 15, Section 9. Replay assist can now pick up a flag if clear and obvious video evidence exists in these additional situations. So I just told you a situation in which they could pick up a flag last year. Replay assist could pick up a flag on an illegal man downfield, right? Replay assist could pick up a flag on an illegal forward pass, right? Because those are black and white. The line of scrimmage was here. His entire body has to be passed when that ball is still in his hands in order for it to be an illegal forward pass, right? Like it was things like that they could jump in and help with. Now, replay assist can help with a defenseless player, okay? So we've seen, and I think this is a direct reflection of the playoff game between the Chiefs and the Texans, where there were some clear and obvious infractions called on the Texans that replay clearly showed that wasn't the case, but there was nothing the Texans could do about it. And so that altered that game, obviously. And so the league is like, hey, we should be able to step in some of these situations. Defenseless player, I think, is really big, not just for how big of a penalty is, the 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down. I also think it's big because those are plays that players get fined for. Every time you get a personal foul penalty, you get fined by the NFL. And if you get a defenseless, player personal foul penalty, if you've had, multiple infractions or, this is your third one, that it increases every time, right? So that's a big one, not just for what it means in the short term, which is on the field and what it could do, in terms of a yardage, first down, et cetera standpoint, but also for these players' pockets. Like, yo, I didn't hit that dude in his head, neck area. That was a clean hit. And I'm going to get a yellow envelope in my locker on Wednesday with a fine. Sometimes they would go back, say, hey, nah, you good on that. Don't worry about it. But generally, if it gets called in the game, you're going to get fined. So I think that's a big one there. Face mask. No face mask or helmet opening contact. We've seen a guy get tackled by the shoulder pad. As a matter of fact, if you're a Commanders fan, you'll remember in the Lions game, in the postseason, we had a really good tackle on a second and forever, and it might even been a third down, and they gave them a personal foul face mask penalty that led to a touchdown that would not have happened. They would have had to punt on that possession. So you would like to see in instance in a scenario where if it's not really a face mask, if you pulled that guy's shoulder but his whole head turned and it looked like a face mask, because a lot of this happens in real time. These officials, they catch a lot. They catch more than they miss, and sometimes they get a bad rap. I think officials do a great job, to be honest with you, because it's so much happening on the play that they have to be aware of and they got to be looking for, and they're trained to find these things and see these things. But all this shit is happening. They don't have the advantage of seeing the shit in slow motion like we do at home. This shit is happening in real time, fraction of a second. Guy head turns in the course of a play, and you just assume it's face mask. 9 times out of 10, it is. But in the event that it's not, replay assist should be able to help clean that up, and I do like that. Horse collar, no hand on the collar or nameplate. That's another one where you go, come on, bro. That wasn't a horse collar. So, like that one. Tripping, no leg or foot contact to an opponent. You don't see a lot of tripping penalties, and generally when you see a tripping penalty, it's because the dude actually got caught tripping somebody. So, that one I don't think is going to have as big of an impact. And then roughing or running into the kicker. If fouling player tips the kicked ball, that's interesting. Generally with roughing or running into the kicker, it feels like most officials don't want to call roughing the kicker, because a lot of times when it happens, like special teams guys are very aware of what the yardage mark is, like the down and distance. They know it's 4th down and like 9. So you can pick up a 5-yard penalty and, they'll still have to punt. But in today's NFL, you got to be careful, because if it's 4th and 8 and you pick up a 5-yard penalty, now it's 4th and 3, shit, they might go for it now. Back in the day, it didn't matter. You could try and block a kick and get a running into the kicker. It's a 5-yard penalty. Team was still going to punt the football. Now, you gotta be careful, man. 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4. That's in my wheelhouse now. I might go for it. I might send the offense out there, or worst case scenario, try to draw you offside. So, most officials don't like calling roughing. So it'll be interesting to see. And rarely do we go, man, that ball was tipped. That shouldn't have been a penalty. I don't really feel like we get that too often. But the first 3, I think, are all big ones, especially the defenseless player penalty that we see so often now, when it's just a vicious hit, but it's all legal. It's shoulder to the chest of a defender or to a receiver. And because of the nature of it, they just throw the flag. I like that you have the ability to pick that up. I really think that's a good one. So those are the new rules as voted on by the owners. Now the question becomes, will there be more changes the next time? Uh-oh. I seen somebody just tweet. Yep, Dodgers came back and beat the Braves again. Shohei Ohtani just walked them off. So We're now 0-7 to start the season off. I thought that would happen. Our bullpen stinks. So, yay, we're 0-7. This is great. Come on, Duke. You're all I got. You're all I got. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know what it is. If you're out there and you want your comment read on the air, two ways to get that done. One is to use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent and time permits. But your most effective and efficient way to have your comment read on the air is to super chat. Use the super chat function, and that will allow your comment to not only be read on the air and reacted to, but it'll also allow you to jump straight to the front of the line. And you ensure that your comment is read and reacted to, no matter what the time says in terms of running out of time or not. So, with that said, let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say, and see what you guys are talking about. So, Jorn, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show our guy Jorn some love. Welcome him with open arms. Show him what it's like to be a member of the most prestigious group in the land, the mob. Welcome to the squad. Glad to have you on board. My guy, Sean Hawk. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, late night Louie. You know what it is, man. Only thing missing is a tall glass of red wine, but it's a weekday, so we refrain from those types of activities in the T household. I feel like the Cowboys better draft an early round QB this year. Interesting. I don't see that happening. Not with the money they've just given Dakota. But you never know. I mean, to me, when you say early round, I'm assuming a day 2 quarterback, because anything after day 2 is not an early round quarterback. So I'm assuming you got to be one of the first 3 rounds, right? Anything after the 3rd round is no longer early. So it wouldn't hurt them. I mean, they had Trey Lance on the roster. So I wouldn't be shocked if they were looking at this crop of quarterbacks saying, "Hey, can we find?" Because ultimately, if Dak gets hurt again and he's shown the propensity to get injured, you now don't have a Cooper Rush on your roster to keep you afloat. I don't even know what they did at backup quarterback. What did they do anything? Did they even sign anyone? So you actually have me interested in the Cowboys. Oh, I need to say this too. I'll save it. Don't let me forget to talk about another rule that's changed as well. But let's look at the Cowboys roster real quick. And I'm actually interested to see if they did anything quarterback wise. They might have signed a quarterback and I wasn't aware. All they have on the roster besides Dak Prescott is Will Greer right now, which is not okay. So, yeah, I think you might be right. They got to do something. They got to do something. So I think you might be on to something there, Sean. Um, Not because you're trying to unseat Dak Prescott, but because you just need another guy in the event that he gets injured, because he's done it multiple times now in his career. And who knows, it could turn into a Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts situation, right? They didn't draft Jalen Hurts to be the guy in Philadelphia. He was supposed to just be a competent backup for Carson Wentz because Wentz had gotten hurt several times, or at that point, it was a couple of times where he didn't finish seasons and they had to go to somebody else. And so to avoid, having 88-year-old Josh McCown, playing in a playoff game like they had that one year where they lost to Seattle, they just said, let's just spend a second round pick on a guy that would be a competent backup. And then, ultimately we saw what has transpired there. Brock Purdy was supposed to be nothing more than a backup to Trey Lance, right? Obviously, we saw what happened there. So I think there is something to that. You may be on to something, Sean. I think you may be on to something. Sean Hawk, my guy. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy. Sean Hawk writes, Trey Hendrickson will be available for a trade on draft night. I'd put money on that. Again, I think you're on to something here. So let's expound upon that. So my guy Sean Hawk is talking about Trey Hendrickson, and I find it a bit strange that the Bengals haven't done anything with his situation since getting the quarterback or the two receivers done, because the way that they phrased it, the way that they kind of positioned themselves was that, hey, once we get these two receivers done, then we're gonna get Trey done and we gonna sweep the whole thing up. Right? Because at one point they were supposed to lose T. They needed to get Jamar done, and they were probably going to end up trading Trey or losing Trey, right? Somehow. Well, they got T done. They got Jamar done, and then they said, hey, we want to get all of them done. And so we just thought, oh, okay, yeah. They'll take care of the receivers, and then they'll get to Trey. Well, they haven't. And I'm pretty sure most of you have seen or at least heard Trey Hendrickson's comments on the Pat McAfee show. He was on Pat McAfee today, and he basically gave clarification for where they are in the process. He's like, there's been no communication. He said the communication has been poor between he and the Bengals. And he said, look, I'm not asking to be the highest paid player. I'm not looking to reset the market. He's like, I want to be in Cincinnati. Sam Hubbard just retired. There's a void in the defensive end, at the position, but more so leadership on the team. Like Hubbard was a team captain for multiple years. And he's like, I would love to fill that void. He said, and he talked about him and his wife, really being in sync when it comes to making decisions. And he's like, we're both, devout followers of Christ. And he said, look, I didn't mind being put in the queue. He's like, I love Jamar, I love T, and I love what they've done. And I think they've got a tremendously bright future. And I was like, uh-oh, where's he going with this? Because anytime you start teeing up something like that, where you start talking about all these guys and what how do you feel about them? And, you're setting me up to tell me, but, you know what I mean? I thought he was about to say, but they haven't accomplished what I accomplished the last 3 years or whatever. He didn't go that route. I was like, phew. He was like, but all they had to do was communicate to me, hey, we're going to put you in the queue, right? He's like, I didn't mind waiting. All they had to do was tell me where we stood. Hey, we're going to put you in the queue. We're going to handle these two dudes first. And then once we're done, we're going to take you out of the queue and we're going to try to get something done with you. He said, but they ain't done none of that. We just kind of sitting in limbo here. So he's getting frustrated, you could tell. And he's been a good soldier the entire time. That's why Cincinnati gave him a chance to shop, himself to the rest of the league to see if they could find a suitable trade partner, because they felt like, hey, look, you've done everything we've asked you to do. You've played by the rules. You deserve to get paid, man. We just don't know if we're going to be able to do it. So see if somebody else will do it. But we got to get proper compensation if we're going to move you. Deadline spur action, Sean. Deadline spur action. So I could see a scenario where he does get traded on draft night. I can see that. But again, Cincinnati's not going to just give him away. And I've been adamant about this. Not only are they not going to give him away, they're perfectly fine with forcing him to play on this last year of this deal for what he probably considers disrespectful money based off of what he's produced for them the last 2 seasons in particular. So they're more than comfortable saying, all right, bro, just play on this little 18 million you getting or whatever. He's not going to be comfortable. Again, I said the same thing when we talked about other guys that, have had contractual disputes with this new CBA. What are you going to do? Sit out? Nah, you're not doing that. So again, what are your other options? You have no other form of recourse. So he has no power in this situation, no leverage. Cincinnati has all of the power and leverage. But if they can get something of good, and again, this is why I don't think a trade is going to happen, because I don't see Cincinnati settling. You're not going to get teams being more desperate on draft night. Normally, the team that is looking to move the player becomes desperate on draft night because they want the draft capital. Shit, we here now. I see what the board is. Yeah, I'll take the pick. I see what players are available. I can replace them right now. That's what happened with A.J. Brown. That's what happened with Hollywood Brown, right? Titans got a first-round pick from the Eagles. Ravens got a first-round pick from the Arizona Cardinals, right? I don't think anybody's giving up a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. I don't think anybody's giving up a second-round pick for him because of what you have to do after you trade for him. In those situations I just spoke of, those teams didn't have to pay that player right away. I know the Eagles eventually paid A.J. Brown. I think they paid him right away. Matter of fact, they paid him right away. That was the reason why the Titans traded him, which was still dumb, but they didn't want to pay him. But I think Hollywood Brown still had multiple years left on his rookie contract, so they didn't have to pay him in Arizona, and they ultimately didn't pay him, right? So you still got to pay Trey Hendrickson, which is why they weren't able to find a trade partner that was willing to dance with them, because they wanted to bop you over the head and say, hey, look, man, I know you got to pay him, but that ain't our problem. We still need proper compensation for him. So, yeah, we still going to need it. Unless they're willing to come down on that price, I don't see it getting done on draft day. Because, again, the desperation doesn't lie with the teams that are looking to acquire Trey Hendrickson. The desperation, that onus is on the Bengals. But they don't operate from a level of desperation. They don't do that. They've shown in the past that they don't operate from a position of desperate. So we'll see. That's a great take, though, Sean. And if it happens, you'll be the first person I shout out, because I could see something like that transpiring, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. But that's not a bad take at all. Gilberto Martinez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Gilberto writes, Lou, 28th B-Day Thursday, man. So in 8 minutes, if you're on the East Coast, you will be 28 years old, man. Happy born day, man. I'm going to tell you early. Happy born day. Man, 28. Oh, man, 28 years young. What a time to be alive, Gilberto. Live it up, man. Have a blast. And have a cold one for me, man. Have a cold one for me. But congratulations, everybody in the comment section. Show Gilberto some love and wish him a very happy 28th born day. That will be happening in 8 minutes on the East Coast. He says, so you know that means this seasoning was the best I've, yes, this season was definitely the best you've ever seen, without question. I mean, it's the best a lot of fans have ever seen. You're not alone there. He said, made better by the content you put out. Let's go for more, HTTC. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. It's people like you that help this channel grow and help, you know, this brand to continue to flourish. So I thank you for all of your support, your time, your energy, your effort. That does not go unnoticed. So thank you. And this by far and away was the best season in recent memory for me. It's not even close, honestly. So now I'm greedy. Now I want a chip. You know what I mean? You know, last year we just went and got a big bowl of dip. Now I need a chip. Now I need a chip. I'm greedy. And I don't just want one. But you can't get to two without one, right? Can't get to three without one. So let's get that first one out the way. Swaggy P, been a member for 28 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes, definitely not a fan of the 35-yard line for a touchback. It just, that's asinine to me. And, you know, I think I saw in the comment section someone reference, like, it's not about accuracy, it's about, or distance, it's about accuracy. These kickers don't care where the ball goes. Like, when they used to try to get touchbacks 2 years ago, when kickers were trying to kick the ball out of the back of the end zone so it could be a touchback and teams could start at 25-yard line. Man, that seems like eons ago that a touchback would get you the ball at the 25, which when that first happened, oh my God, the 25-yard line, have they gone mad? Now it's the 35-yard line. They've really gone mad. These kickers would kick that shit as hard and as far as they could. They ducked their head when they kicked it. Like, they knew they weren't going to kick the shit out of bounds, right? These kickers are professionals. So you moving it back to the 20 is the same as them trying to kick the shit out of the football from the 35-yard line, 4 yards out of the end zone, right? You move it back to the 25-yard line, they kick it shit as far as they want. They're not getting touchbacks then. And now you don't have to give the ball to the team at the 35-yard line if they do somehow make it to the end zone and the team decides not to return it. But again, this just goes against everything that, to me, like, you're punishing teams for kicking the ball into the end zone too much. You're doing too much here. Like, I liken this to me, like, so I'll give you a great example. My son, when the twin, the boy twin, right? I have a girl and a boy twins, twin, right? The boy of that group his head is thick, right? Like, boop, boop, boop. Like, he don't give a damn about what you're talking about. He don't give a shit. So he's destroyed the blinds in their room at least 7 times. Like I wanted to strangle him after the first like 2 times. And then, as he got a little bit older, I'm like, okay, he should be able to understand. So now I start fussing at him, plucked him in his ear, hey, take him to the blinds. Hey, don't do this no more. And oh yeah, no, okay. And he just says okay to everything, right? He don't give a damn what I'm talking about. And he proceeds to tear the shit up again anyway. So I said, you know what? At one point, I just took the blinds and just pushed them shits up. Like, okay. The onus is now on me. Clearly, he's not going to change his behavior. And me fussing at him, plucking him, all that should clearly he don't care. Like, that's not affecting him. Right? When he gets bored, he's gonna destroy the blinds. So the onus is on me to take the blinds, right? Put a new pair up and then roll them bitches all the way up to where he can't reach them. Even if he tried, he can't reach them. Well, my wife was like, I don't like people looking inside the room, yada, 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 because we didn't have curtains in that room. So we pulled it down, and what you think he did? Right. So what I'm saying is, don't penalize the kickers and the team kicking the football off for kicking it into the end zone. Instead, make it so they can't, right? Don't fuss at your son. If you're me, don't fuss at your son and berate him and get all upset. Just take that opportunity away from him, right? Don't put him in a position to break the blinds, to tear them to shreds. Take that out of his control, right? Do the same thing with don't penalize them and put the ball at the 35-yard line. Just move the damn ball back so they can't kick it all the way to the end zone. Which one makes more sense? To me, that's just stupid. But again, these are the people that get paid to do this shit, and it's their league. They can do whatever the hell they want to do, and clearly they know best. Clearly they know best. Just Andre. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Just Andre writes, Duke winning it all after what they did to Bama. I thought that was the one team that could beat us because of their ability to shoot the basketball. They were the ones that scared me the most. So Arizona, I told y'all Caleb Love was the problem, right? And boy, was he ever, right? He's been a Duke killer. Even at his time in North Carolina, he was a Duke killer. Ended Coach K's career, knocked us out of the tournament. He was a Duke slayer. And he tried to do it one final time on his way out. Put 35 on our head, but it wasn't enough. I knew we were going to beat Arizona. But I thought it could be competitive, and it ended up being. At one point, we had gotten that lead up to 19, and then Caleb Love blacked out. He blacked out. And that game ended up being a lot closer than I had imagined, but we needed that. I was so glad it happened because they needed to be tested, and I needed to see those veterans, the Sion Jameses of the world and the Gillises. I needed to see those guys step up because that's why we went in the transfer portal and got you. I needed to see Tyrese Proctor show up. That's why you've been at Duke for 3 years now. You can't ask the children, the puppies, to carry you in those situations. They'll carry their weight. They'll do what they're supposed to do. But that's when I need the adults in the room to stand up and say, hey, we got you. Don't look to the kids in those moments. I need the adults to step up, and they did. And I said, okay, we're going to win the national championship. But Alabama, like, that kind of firepower, I was like, uh-oh. But we put that shit to sleep. They had some looks too. They just didn't knock them down. But I'm not afraid. Now, Houston plays defense, but I'm not afraid of Houston. I'm not afraid of Auburn. Florida is the one team that I look at. I'm like, they could be a problem. But even they don't scare me, but I understand the challenges that they bring. Auburn, I feel good about them if it's them. But we got to take care of Houston first. I don't want to overlook anybody. But I'm going to be very disappointed. And I said this already. I think I told you guys this when we got to the field of 32, maybe the Sweet 16, whatever. Normally in a year, when you make it to the Final Four, you feel good. That's the goal. Like the goal is to win a national championship, but the Final Four is a prestigious thing. Like when you talk about a coach, how many Final Fours has he made it to? Like that's the thing that you go to first. And then you throw the natties out there. Like, yo, he's a 2-time national championship winner, but he's been to 8 Final Fours. That's not good enough this year. John Shire needs to win. And boy, John is the best. We got lucky. Generally, when your program has a historical figure like Coach K, it's damn near impossible to replace him with a successor that is going to come anywhere near living up to the bill, right? I mean, you go look at like the Georgetown program, for instance, with Big John. They ain't been the same since he left, right? They haven't even come close to being that. You know, Dean Smith left and they struggled, but Roy Williams was really good there. They're going to struggle without Roy, right? Like Hubert Davis is struggling, man. Carolina looks bad. They're bad right now. And you look at Villanova. Jay Wright retires, struggling, man. Struggling. Like it's hard replacing a legend. John Shire is the man because in this environment, in college basketball and collegiate sports now with NIL, the game has changed forever. It's never going to be the same. Like me and my buddy were having a conversation. I know I'm going off, topic here, but this is what I do, especially with late night Louie. You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting yourself into. So, vibe with me on this one. But me and my buddy were talking. And he said to me, we've seen the last of the mid-major, in college basketball turning a tournament upside down. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he proceeded to explain himself. And when he said it initially, I was like, tell me more. Because remember, I came on this very podcast bitching and complaining that we didn't have any buzzer beaters. We didn't have any close games, no upsets for real of any real sort. And that's how we ended up with 4 number 1 seeds, obviously. But he started to talk about, he gave me this example. He said, and I forget the name of the school it was, but I'm just going to throw out a random school because I can't remember the name of the school. He said, but UNLV has 5 different players in this tournament right now on 5 different teams that are starters for teams that are in the tournament right now. And I said, okay. And he said, what do you think they would have done had they just all stayed at UNLV? And I went, huh, interesting. Right? We don't know, but that's how you get a mid-major, right? That's how you get a St. Mary, St. Vincent. Yeah, I'm making up some shit, right? But that's how you get one of these Loyola Chicagos to make a run in the tournament. Like I thought the team that was going to potentially do it this year was what was their name? Was it McNeese State? I think it was McNeese State. I think was the name of the school. McNichol, it was McNichols or McNee? I think it was McNee State. I thought they were going to be the team, but they just didn't have enough. But to his point, if you've got a good player, he's leaving and he's transferring between NIL and the transfer portal. That guy's leaving. Like, we talked about Norfolk State. And remember, they had that little run with Kyle O'Quinn where they were the 15 seed. They upset the 2 seed. And I think it was Missouri that year. And then they got mopped by Florida, right? If I'm not mistaken. Or they might have won 2 games and then they got mopped by Florida. Whatever the case may be. He's like, Kyle O'Quinn isn't at Norfolk State in this climate. He transfers. Because remember, Kyle O'Quinn made it to the NBA. Played for several years, right? He's like, he's not staying at Norfolk State. He's leaving. He's transferring. And that's the new climate that we're in now. And I know I went off subject. I know I went off topic, but it's a different animal now. And the vets stepped up. That's why you go in the transfer portal. That's why John Shire is the best, because he was already a master recruiter when Coach K was on the bench. He was the guy getting the Kyrie Irvings and the Jason Tatums to sign on the dotted line to come to Duke. That was John Shire. That wasn't Coach K. So he was able to just seamlessly transition his way to the head coaching spot because he was already getting those 5-star recruits to come to Duke. He was the guy that was doing that. And then John has this uncanny ability to get guys to come over from the transfer portal and convince them that, hey, we got all these 5 stars coming in, but if you are the better option, you're going to play. So Sion James decides to come to Duke after leaving and transferring from Tulane, and he was supposed to be a backup behind Caleb Foster. And about a third of the way through the season, John realized Sion needs to be starting and Caleb needs to be coming off the bench. And that was the absolute right move. Now he's got to re-recruit Caleb Foster, because if I'm Caleb Foster, if you just bench me for Sion James, and I'm pretty sure you probably got another 5-star recruit point guard coming in here next year, I don't got to deal with this shit. I'm Caleb Foster. I can go to Maryland and start next year. I can go to North Carolina and start next year. I can go to Kansas and start next year. I don't got to stay here for this shit. So he's got to re-recruit Caleb Foster to try to not get him to go into the transfer portal. He's as good as gone, if you ask me. But again, I'm on another topic. I could talk about that type of shit all day long, but I do think Duke is winning it all, but I'm going to be disappointed if they don't. So anyway, I digress. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy, Swaggy P. Writes, I only had a problem with the tush push based on the formation, and sometimes the Eagles' O-line is lined up in the neutral zone. And I had someone say that the tush push shouldn't be eliminated. It should just be officiated to where you're making sure that everybody is on where they're supposed to be. I just feel like that unless you're going to use New York for that, that is damn near impossible for you to see live. It's so many bodies in that tight, confined space trying to jockey for position without actually moving. It's hard to see whose head is where, what, and what. I agree. That needs to be officiated better. That, and I think teams move, like the Eagles, they move first. They're literally lined up in the neutral zone. Some defensive teams are lined up in the neutral zone as well. It's not just the Eagles who are lined up. And then you got the Eagles moving first. Like, I remember when they played against us one time, their dude literally moved like a full second before everybody else moved. Like, that can't be the case. So it's just a hard play to officiate, which is why I was like, look, if somebody would have went in and said, it's a hard play to officiate because I've seen times where you grab, like Hurts initially doesn't have the first down. When do you say, all right, the play's dead? And then he's like body surfing for like 30 seconds and then finally he gets the touchdown. I'm like, bro, what the was that? Like how long you want me to stop him from getting in the end zone? Like I already did it for like 5 seconds. At some point, you need to run in here and say, okay, he didn't get the shit. So if I would have respected the Packers more if they would have went in and said, this play is too hard to officiate. I could get behind that. You can't come at me with some, it's an eyesore for the league and it's a player safety concern. No, it's not. You're lying. That ain't gonna jive. Had they said, bro, this shit is hard to officiate. You got dudes moving early. You got both teams in the neutral zone. You got, the officials not knowing when to blow the play dead. Like it's too many factors in here. It's a hard play to officiate. I think that would have had more legs to stand on. Black Al B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Black Al B, writes, what it do, Lou? What's going on, Black Al B? Says, couple casts ago, I sent the super chat that didn't get read, LOL. My bad. My bad. Did you send it in at the end? Like when I was about to sign off? Sometimes that happens. I stated that I hope all the spending the Vikes did doesn't go the way that it did when Snyder spent crazy that one year and the Skins were a mess. You're talking about 2000. No. I don't view what you guys are doing as what we did. Like we went after has-beens, dudes that careers were done and they were just chasing a check. Bruce Smith literally came to Washington because it was close to home. We were going to pay him the most money, and he was trying to get the NFL sack record. That's all he cared about. He didn't give a shit about winning. I'm close to the crib, so I'm not away from my family. Y'all about to pay me this ridiculous amount of money nobody else in the league was going to pay me. Oh, and I can still get the sack record. So this is all great. Deion Sanders was past his prime. And Deion, even at that level, was still better than most corners in the NFL. But he wasn't the Deion from San Francisco, Dallas, or anything of the sort, right? Mark Carrier was cooked when we got him. Jeff George was ass. So, again, we went out and we signed a bunch of dudes that were past their prime. Y'all didn't do that. But we'll see what it all amounts to. The key for y'all is J.J. McCarthy, honestly. If he's good, you're fine. Because the defense ain't going to they're not going to just fall apart on you. They'll keep you in ball games, but if J.J. McCarthy ain't worth a damn, then, you're going to suffer. So that's what it's all going to boil down to is, can J.J. McCarthy manage the game? Can he make plays and some throws when when it's required of him? If he can, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But you don't have to worry about being as poorly run a franchise as we were. You didn't just do that. Sean Hawk, my guy, writes, I don't know how to feel about this offseason because I've never experienced this before, but I know I have JD5. You're not alone in that. There are a lot of fans that they don't really know how to go about success because they've never seen this level of success before. And again, we ain't win shit. We didn't win the division. We didn't win the Super Bowl, but we won 2 playoff games. That's probably 2 more than you've ever seen this franchise win, Sean. Right? You can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm probably right. And my guy Gilberto, who just turned 28, shout out to Gilberto, happy born day. It's officially 12 o'clock on the East Coast. Happy born day. Happy 28th born day to Gilberto Martinez. Y'all make sure y'all show him some love in the comment section. Gilberto said this was the most successful season he's ever seen. Gilberto had never seen a playoff victory, more likely than not, before this year. Of course, he's never seen an NFC championship game. So I get it. And what do you do for an encore when you just witnessed the greatest rookie season a quarterback's ever had in NFL history, and you could argue the greatest single season turnaround we've ever seen? We went from the number 2 pick in the draft that we earned. We didn't have this pick because we traded with someone the year before and we ended up like Chicago did that one year when they had the number 1 pick in the draft because they traded with Carolina. Nah, that ain't how we ended up with the number 2. We earned the number 2 pick. We were awful in 2023. We blew the whole thing up and started anew, and we ended up in the NFC Championship game, 1 game removed from the Super Bowl. It's one of the greatest single season turnarounds we've ever seen. So where do you go from there? The only place to go from there, if you're trying to go up, is the Super Bowl. So naturally, as a fan, you want to see them go for the Super Bowl. And for some fans, what they've done isn't enough to achieve that. I disagree, but I get it. Because there's a lot of wait and see with what we've done, especially on defense. I feel like the offense is better already. But there's a lot of wait and see on the defensive side of football. But if you tell me that the defense is just as good as it was last year, which wasn't very good, but they had their moments. You tell me it's just as good as it was last year, I'll tell you that the offense has a chance to be better than it was last year. We can win. We can win. But we'll see. The beauty is, to your point, we got JD5, and that gives us a shot. That gives us a chance. In every game we play in, we got a shot because we got 5. Sean Hawk. Hawk! Hawk! Right. I only started watching the team in 2012, so yeah. Figured as much. I didn't know you started in 2012, but you had never seen a playoff victory. Then you got 2. So, yeah, this was an incredible ride. But I've said this, I wholeheartedly believe this. That was just the beginning. That was just the start of something beautiful, magical, illustrious, dominant. These are all adjectives that I'm hoping will describe the Washington Commanders over the next 15 years, 20 years. We're off to a hell of a start. All right. Let's get to. All right. I'm gonna grab a couple comments. I ain't gonna grab too many. Sheree writes, how would you feel about the Grizzlies' chances against Denver? Not good at all. We can't beat Denver in a 7-game series. Joker's amazing. And, people make fun of Michael Malone for only playing like 8 dudes. Like, he's going to run their ass into the ground. Like, he's going to play his 8 guys, though, right? I literally, it's crazy because Michael Malone is very similar in how he plays his players to Tibbs in New York with the Knicks, to the point where Mikal Bridges told Tibbs, "Hey, bro, I need you to play me less minutes." I've never heard an NBA player ask for less minutes. But when you got your guys, you ride them, right? Pause. Michael Malone is the same way in Denver. He's got his 7, 8 dudes he trusts, and we gonna ride. And that's the problem in Memphis is we don't have a rotation. We don't have our 8, 9 guys we trust. We playing 11, 12 dudes in games and shit. And we in April and you still playing going 11 deep. You can't be doing that shit this time of the year. You got to be tightening up these rotations and so guys know what's good, who's playing what. We got no shot against Denver. We got no shot against OKC. We got no shot against we got no shot against the Clippers, no shot against, and they're behind us right now. But if we had gotten the 2 seed and the Clippers ended up as the 7 seed, we would have lost in the first round to them. There's certain teams that we just don't match up well with. Because if you got a fiend on the boards, like Zubac kills us every time we see Zubac. You can go ahead and put him down for anywhere between 15 to 20 boards against us. Because we don't rebound. If you got one, like, I think we would have a shot against the Lakers. Because they don't have anybody that's going to clean the glass. That's why we used to struggle with the Lakers with Anthony Davis, because we used to be one of the best rebounding teams with Steven Adams. Right? And even before that with Jonas Valanciunas. But Zach Edey just ain't at that level right now. And he's done a really good job of rebounding for a rookie. But that's why I wanted the dude from the Knicks in the offseason that went to OKC, Isaiah Hartenstein. That's why I wanted him so bad. It's like, yo, we got to go get Isaiah Hartenstein. We didn't do it. He went to OKC, and now he kills us. Because he's a fiend. He wants the basketball. We don't have a guy that's a fiend to go get the ball when it's up on the glass. No, we can't beat Denver in the series. Sean Hawk, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sean Hawk writes, what are good headphones to get? What are you trying to do? Are you talking about over the ear? Are you talking about in ear? Because I did a promo for Raycon, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good. If you're looking for some, and I like the technology that they're using too. So if you need the link, I can give you the link so you can get some. Use my promo code, you'll get a percentage off. You win, I win. But if you're talking about over the ear, I usually just get anything. I ain't even on front. So in ear though, I'm a little bit more particular about that. Let's see. I think, yeah, I saw that, Sheree. Otani walk off 0-7. I knew it was coming. What did I tell you when I first came on? I said we were winning, but we've been winning like 3 out of the 7 losses. We were winning in the 7th inning, 8th inning, and ended up losing those games. So And it was funny. I was talking to my homeboy and I was like, man, our bullpen stinks. He's like, we'll be fine. I was like, okay. 0-7. Bet he didn't see that shit coming. Well, I did. No, I didn't. I didn't see 0-7 coming. Oh man, we stink. Let's go ahead and get to the final segment of the show. Y'all know what it is. Garbage time. I love to one of my favorite pastimes on this podcast is allowing Jerry Jones to make an ass out of himself and then laughing at his expense. I'm going to take a moment to do that yet again here on this podcast. In case you didn't hear the latest dumbass, ignorant statement from Jerry Jones, this was Jerry Jones at the league meetings talking about his current negotiations with Micah Parsons and how he does not value agents. Take a listen.
Really? Are you kidding me? That's just not something that you should worry about. You should be worrying about your ability to make it work, and you should be worried about what the player does. Does he have good enough health? Does he have enough skill to do what you're paying him the money for? The agent is not a factor here, or something to worry about. And I don't know his name. And so my point is that I'm not trying to demean him in any way, but this isn't about an agent. The agent doesn't have one thing to do with what we're doing when we get on a football field against a team. Micah does. To the degree I'm involved, I do. The people that have something to do with what we do going forward relative to our fans in football are me and the player, not the agent. And I'm not demeaning the agent. I'm just saying anybody can do this, and that's talk directly to a player. And frankly, most people that negotiate me will tell you that they were better off than anybody, Stephen or anybody involved. So this is not uncommon. I've fished directly with as far back as Emmett, Dion, and we, by the way, maintained a relationship that lasted well after their playing days.
All right, so where we at? Why am I so small? Oh, that's why. So Jerry being Jerry, right? It was funny because when I first watched this, if you watch the guy, like I'm assuming it's his like his media press guy. If you've ever listened to like DQ or Adam Peters, you'll hear the guy say, "Hey, two more," right? Like kind of because if you didn't have somebody there to regulate how long the coach or the GM would be there for, they'd ask questions all day long if you let them. You got to cut them off at a certain point. So he was back there like kind of tugging at Jerry, like, "Bro, shut up." But Jerry ain't gonna shut up. You can see it was like, okay, you saying too much. And honestly, Jerry was fine with what he was saying. Like if you want to go through the player and leave the agent out of it, and that's your methodology and that's what you've been doing, knock yourself out. Like, okay, whatever. That's the way you've always handled it. It's the reason why the Cowboys are one of the worst teams from a cap standpoint almost every year. It's the reason why these deals get done as late as they do and they don't get, these deals done in an efficient manner to where it's beneficial for them long term, but rather wait to the last minute and pay more than pay less, is because Jerry's doing this shit himself, right? So you understand why the Cowboys are in the position that they're in constantly, because Jerry's the one, driving, that ship straight into an iceberg and sinking like the Titanic. However, he was doing too much. He went too far, right? By talking about the agent, David Mulugeta, who apparently, and I didn't really know that he was that beloved around the league. Like, he's one of the best agents in football and yada, yada, yada. And a lot of people stood up and said, yeah, no, this guy's A1. Jerry's an ass clown for this. And, Jerry, he did the equivalent of Rio after shitting on a dude for 5 minutes. Rio going, yo, shout out to Michael Parsons' agent. That's essentially what Jerry Jones just did. Is he shit on the agent like, I don't need no agent. I don't be talking to no agent. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even know his name, right? After you do all that shit, then he goes, no disrespect to the agent. Too late for that shit, bro. Too late. You telling everybody you don't even know his name just to make sure we understand that you have no contact with his agent and you don't plan on having any contact with him. Like, he's not important in this entire negotiation and he's not important in this matter, is disrespectful to his agent. He's got representation. Micah Parsons is not his own agent. So you essentially are undercutting the agent and almost going behind his back trying to negotiate with his client. Now, again, that's all on the client. Like, if Michael Parsons wants to make sure that his agent is handling this situation, then he could tell Jerry, yo, you got to talk to my agent. But Jerry has, made it known that I don't deal with agents. I deal with the players directly. The ones like of this caliber, where I know I'm gonna have to fork over millions upon millions of dollars. I need to talk to them directly. So Micah, had to post, and this is the thing I love, is that they got to clean up a mess that their owner made. Like, how many organizations in football have to do this? Not many, right? It's probably just the Cowboys, maybe the Jets. Woody Johnson is the dumbass, but not many organizations have to have their players come out and put out a message on social media to combat something that their owner said, to just make sure that everybody knows where I stand on all of this. I love it. Long live Jerry Jones. We've talked about this. Protect him at all costs. Michael Parsons had to come out and essentially say, my agent is the best. David Mulugeta is awesome, and he's going to be a part of this process every step of the way. I trust him, yada, 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 yada. So, and a lot of the beat, reporters that cover Dallas are like, yo, Jerry's flagrant and out of line. And this is why, like, like, Jerry's so old. He's so old. He, like, time has passed him by 5 times over, right? Jerry's still stuck in the 90s. Okay. You hear who he brought up? I did the same thing with Dion and Emmett. That was in the 90s, bro. What are you talking about? It's 2025. You're talking about a deal you got done with Deion Sanders back in 1993. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Wake the hell up. He's old and senile, though, right? So the thing that Jerry continues to miss the boat on is that in order to put your organization in the best position to get players, you need to establish relationships with agents. Most players are not their own agent. And thus, if you want to, like, if I'm an agent and my client is giving me full autonomy to help him decide where his next destination should be, if I don't have a great relationship with an organization and everything's equal, I'm not steering my client towards that destination. I'm going to send him elsewhere. Like that happens all the time. And hell, as a fan of a team that was a bottom feeding organization, we were victims of that quite often, where agents would tell their clients, don't go to Washington, not unless they're overpaying by 15% above market value. Don't go to Washington. And even then, you probably don't want their money. Like Jerry Jones is a dumbass. And I say that in the kindest way possible. Right? I've said this for a long time, and I'm kind of contradicting myself here. But when I say he's a dumbass, I'm not talking about smarts. I'm just talking about how he conducts himself and how he goes about doing things. Right? They're stupid ways he does it. Right? Inefficient and ineffective ways, I feel. But make no mistake about it, Jerry Jones is not a dumb man. He understands what he's doing. He's just stubborn and stuck in his ways. Never change, Jerry. Never change. Because if he doesn't change, the Cowboys' outcome doesn't change, which we all love. Nothing like a crash and burn, movie for the Dallas Cowboys. Like that ending never gets old when it comes to Dallas. Crash and burn, the whole walk away slowly as the Cowboys season blows up and that explosion happens and you walk in slow motion because it looks cool. You've seen the commercials that do that, right? You've seen the movies where the action hero is walking and he's covered in smoke and soot and he's dirty because he's been through this intense battle, and as he's walking away and shit's blowing up, that's the Cowboys every year, and it's beautiful and it never gets old. Another Cowboy season up in flames, up in smoke. Oh, give me some popcorn. This is great. It'll continue to be that way as long as Jerry Jones is running the show. So, as I've said before, and I've said again, and I'm going to say many, many more times, long live Jerry Jones. Protect him at all costs. Get him as many sausage McMuffin biscuits with whatever he was eating on Hard Knocks. Get him as many of those McGriddles, whatever the hell he was eating. Get him as many of those as he needs. What an idiot. Oh, somebody in the comment section said, hey, can't remember what you were going to talk. Yeah, thank you for reminding me because I damn sure did forget. I did tell y'all there was another rule that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So while we're here, let's talk about these other rules real quick. So the Steelers proposed a scenario where teams could contact free agents of other teams during the negotiating window. It passed with some modifications on a 1-year trial basis. Okay. So this is what now can take place. Because remember, until free agency actually hit, you couldn't actually have contact with, like, the tampering period was cool for the agents and whatnot, but that window still existed for teams to really try to get their guys back, right? Now, with what the Steelers propose, clubs can now have one video or phone call with no more than 5 prospective unrestricted free agents and can book travel upon agreeing to terms. Previously, clubs could only have contact with agents, not players, until free agency officially begins 52 hours later. So what the Steelers propose is, hey, let me get a chance to talk to the player. The agent can't convey to that player what it might be like playing here. And I might be able to get, like, this is the Jerry Jones method of, handling a contract. Let me get straight to the source. Let me get to the player. Because if I sell him directly, I might be able to sway him that, hey, they're not utilizing you correctly and they ain't trying to pay you. If they really wanted you, they would have already broke you off, bro. You wouldn't even be here talking to me. I see the value in you. Like, he wants a chance to get in these dudes' ears so that they can potentially woo or sway a guy away from a team. So that's interesting. Now that you can do it via phone call or video chat, which I'm not sure that teams weren't already doing this type of stuff, but now it's actually legal, right? The NFL approved bylaw proposals to permit clubs to designate 2 players to return um, for return at the roster reduction to 53 players. To permit clubs participating in the postseason to receive 2 additional DFRs, increasing the maximum from 8 to 10, and to insert point differential as the third tiebreaker for awarding contracts. So let's go through each one of those. So before, when you were cutting your roster down to 53 players, you could only have 1 player designated to return. So he would not count against your 53-man roster, right? You could only have 1 guy. Now you can have 2. So if you've got a couple of dudes who aren't ready that are going to start the season, like that's not on the pup list, but let's say you got them on IR, because the pup list I think is for like 6 weeks or whatever. But this dude might not be back to like week 10 or something like that, 12. You can designate him on IR to come back, and he won't count against the 53-man roster. A lot of times you would have to put that guy on IR so that he would be out the entire season, right? If you did it before the 53-man rosters were trimmed down. If you did it before he was out for the season, you'd have to wait until after your 53-man rosters were set. Then you could put a guy on IR, right? Short-term IR to return, but it would count against your 53-man roster. Now you don't have to wait. Okay. Now, instead of that guy being on your roster and then placing him on IR, you could keep that roster spot for someone else who is healthy and ready to contribute now, and allow that same guy to go on IR and not have to be out the entire season if you think he's going to come back at some point. So that's that. Says to permit clubs participating in the postseason to receive 2 additional DFRs, increasing the maximum from 8 to 10. DFRs, I'm trying to think of what that is. And I saw the tweet from one of these insiders explaining this, and I totally forget what DFRs stand for. If it comes to me, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll get the information. I might be able to look it up real quick, but I don't think it's something I'm gonna find real fast. I think it's something I'm gonna have to either come across or oh, okay. So in the NFL, DFR stands for designated to for return. So DFR stands for designated for return. So it refers to a rule that allows teams to designate players on injured reserve to return to the active roster after missing a minimum of 4 games. So essentially, you could, if you were going to the postseason, you only had access to 8 of those. Now, if you're going to the playoffs, you have 10. So you get an additional 2. So you might have had guys that have been out, they've been on IR, and you in past years would have just put them on IR. Their season is done. Now they can return before the end of the season while you're in the postseason. So that, and then the point differential is the third tiebreaker for awarding contracts. So essentially, what they're talking about is when a player is released and you put in a waiver claim. Um, there were tiebreaker scenarios, and I'm assuming the third one was something like maybe I don't know a coin toss or some shit like that. Now it's point differential. So you know what point differential is? How many points you score versus how many you've given up. So you know it- that's a little funky because in college you beat the brakes off of teams because you know you it's a voting system and you wanted style points. In the NFL, you know, if I'm up 8, 9 late in the game and a team goes for it on fourth down and they don't get it, and now I have the ball at their 6-yard line, I'm gonna just take a knee, the game's over, right? But in instances where I need the point differential, I might have to score this touchdown on your ass, right? That's not great sportsmanship, but when you put stuff like this in place, and most people aren't thinking about chasing after this shit. Once I win the game, I'm taking these. But you might get somebody like, hey man, we may need that tiebreaker. Go ahead and score that touchdown anyway. I doubt it, but if I were in a room, I would bring that up as a reason to not do something like this. Right? You don't want to incentivize teams to do shit that might start a fight. Anyway. The league approved resolution proposals to permit clubs to prepare kicking footballs, which are the K balls. You've heard that. But have you ever seen a K ball? The shit looks like they just pulled it straight out of a package. Never been used, slippery as shit, right? Like I remember when Tony Romo dropped that field goal against Seattle. Was it an extra point in the playoffs? And they lost the game. I think it was an extra point. That K ball was as slick as it gets, man. Those balls. So the kicking balls are different than the ones that they actually play with in the game. Pause. Um, you get to doctor up a regular football. You play catch with it. You know, you can make sure that it feels good to the touch. With K balls, you weren't allowed to do any of that. The only thing you could do with a K ball, which is why I think you see more fumbles on kickoffs and shit like that, because those balls are slick, man. They really truly are. Now, before game day, the similar to the process permitted for gay balls. So now you can doctor up. And when I say doctor up, you can just make them better equipped for play, which I always found weird. Why are we kicking different balls? Why not just have the same ball you've been throwing around, but it says, and two permit clubs that qualify for the postseason to obtain scouting credentials for 2 consecutive games, week 17, played by a potential postseason opponent. So if you're going to the playoffs and you know that your opponent might be one of 3 teams, um, you can get scouting credentials for those teams' games in the final 2 weeks so you can start to prep for them. So those were some other rule changes um, that have happened that I thought bared mentioning before we get out of here. So I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me on this late night Louie edition. Um, I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again, potentially as early as today on the podcast, but more likely than not Friday if there is to be another episode this week, because I would like to probably preview the Final Four, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll come back and talk. If something else happens that prompts me to come back, then I may be able to just do all of that at once. If not, then maybe we won't. But I do want to preview the Final Four, but I don't know if that's enough of a reason to come on the podcast. So probably could have done it tonight, but I wanted to talk about jury. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But I should be back with a command post live on Thursday night. Um, we'll see if we do that or not. More likely than not, we will. And for those of you following the Draft Prospects 101 series, I will be transitioning to the wide receiver position next. So keep tabs on that. But until next time, I am your man, Louie T, signing off. I will see you guys next time. You guys take care. Have a good one. God bless and good night.